Hello, this is Reverend Don Lewis, and I am here at Chosen Path Church in beautiful Jacksonville, Florida, with the Reverend Laurie Denman, who is the head of the church. And how are you, Laurie?
I am wonderful.
And you recently received your 3rd degree.
I did.
And you received the crown chakra attunement.
I did.
And we'll come back and talk about those in a few moments.
Okay.
But we're here in your temple, in front of your pond, which is frequently the repository for pugs who have lost their footing. And you're involved in pug rescue.
I am.
And we'll hopefully talk a little bit about that as well.
Okay.
But as for the temple itself, when did you start the temple?
I started the temple in June. The ancestors had been browbeating me for several years, and I was in denial. No, not now. No, now's not a good time. Not now. I have a Christian friend, and she and her husband adopt special needs children from China. And if anybody has ever been exposed to that, it's a very difficult process. They have been lucky enough to do multiple adoptions at the same time. And Lisa is always saying about she puts her faith in God and just knows that it's going to work out and everything's going to be fine. And that kind of hit me, that I needed to have the same faith in the ancestors and the gods, and I needed to do what they said to do when they said to do it instead of on Laurie time. Went through the soul retrieval process, and the healing that was given to me by the goddess flooded me with images that I better get my temple going. So in June, I listened. I am doing what the ancestors asked me to do, no matter what the obstacles that may come.
And this is not your first temple experience. You have been part of another temple previously. Mm-hmm. Do you find that being the temple head is different from being a member of the temple administration?
Yes. Just as we were growing up, all of the holidays were done and everything was taken care of, and as children we go through and we're kind of oblivious as to what it takes to make that happen. I have a new appreciation for my former high priestess. Not that I didn't appreciate her before, because she's a wonderful woman and I love her to death, but until you've walked in those shoes, you don't know what it takes. There's a lot of bases to cover, and especially if you're trying to grow. If you're trying to get out in the community, you not only have to do your temple responsibilities, but you have to get out there in the community to make it be known that you are there and that you're seeking members. So I've learned a new respect.
And do you find the local pagan community to be receptive?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. I have met everyone with open arms, and they have met me with equally open arms. I cannot say enough good about Melanie Crump and her organization of Pagan Pride Day. It was a magical day. That's the only way to describe it. The energy was perfect. And she worked very hard, and her legion of volunteers worked very hard. So there are people that are willing to roll up their sleeves and make it happen for the broader community. I'm sure there's many private circles out there, but Jacksonville really is working hard to make sure that the community, A, knows that there's a pagan community here, that we're open to members, and that we have value to add to the Jacksonville community.
Wonderful.
Part of Pagan Pride Day is that we sponsored a food drive for a food bank and a food and supply drive for First Coast No More Homeless Pets. And we're very successful in that. So we're making our presence known.
Wonderful. Now, I said earlier we would come back to the 3rd degree. You recently had the initiation ceremony. How has life been after that? Did it make any noticeable change for
Oh,
you?
definitely. With each step along the way, each ritual that you receive is very special. Each one builds upon the other, and you feel that growing connection to deity, that growing connection to the ancestors, and the growing connection to your fellow community members. My chosen path is the Corellian path, and the third degree initiation, I was not the same person when I left that room as I was when I went in. I was much more at peace, much more felt as a whole person, very, very holistic, the impact of that ritual.
Wonderful. And you also had the crown chakra attunement.
I did.
And I believe that had a different kind of effect on you.
It did.
Would you like to talk about that?
Very shortly after the attunement, I began to notice that my vision was changing.
Mm-hmm.
And it was becoming much more acute, much more pronounced. I could see things more dimensionally. They had more depth,
Mm-hmm.
almost. It was sort of like a 3D movie with your glasses on. It was everything was very pronounced, and it lasted for several days.
Mm-hmm. And then went back to normal.
It then went back to normal.
So would you say that the attunement was effective for you?
I would. I would. I had expected it only to impact the third eye, but apparently it impacts the other two as well.
It can. It's very different for different people. And I'd have to say that was one of the more interesting effects that I've seen. But, you know, it can do a lot of interesting things for people.
Another one of the people that had it that day, it put so much energy into them
Mm-hmm.
that they had trouble sleeping that night.
Yeah.
The energy waves just kept on coming.
And we did like ground and release afterwards,
Mm-hmm.
but it was ongoing.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things about that particular attunement is that the effect it has depends in part on where the person is to start with. And so it will hit some people much more strongly than others. For some, it will move certain things into alignment more or less, varying upon how much they were already aligned. So that's something that we're offering to people, and at various Corellian events you can get it. People who have had the attunement can give the attunement. And so if you're in Jacksonville and you want the attunement, you can talk to Reverend Laurie.
Do you want to tell them what the attunement is for?
The attunement, that's a good point. And you can also see the ceremony in which this was done on Magic TV. We did videotape from a bit of a distance, but it basically is an attunement of the crown chakra, which is intended to make people more psychically aware, more psychically receptive, and it also is also very good for manifestational magic. It brings the chakra into better alignment for these purposes. If you've studied our degree system, you'll know that there's a chapter where we talk about energetic constructs being used as engines in the chakras. It's not quite the same thing as that, but it follows the same purpose. It's there to augment and to rev up the chakra, for want of a better way to put it. And we believe that this is something really everybody should have who wishes to have it. You don't have to have done anything to qualify for it. You simply have to ask for it and want to have it. As I say, it will have different effects for different people, but we believe that it is part of a change that everybody's going through. And there are many people out there who have experienced it without anyone having done it because their own guides will have done it. But we're helping that process along. And I think the last thing that I want to ask you about, we mentioned pugs in the pool. And I believe there was one the other night.
Yes, there was.
But the relevance of this is that you're involved in pug rescues.
I am.
And would you like to say a few words about that?
I got involved in pug rescue because I was looking to adopt, and my sister said, Laurie, why don't you foster? You'll be able to help so many more dogs.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the truth. In the past 3.5 years, I've had 15 different fosters. I've lost one, but he came in, he was a hospice pug, but my kids didn't think I could do it. They didn't think I'd be able to give them up.
Uh-huh.
But we do such a good job at home checks and vet checks, and if I just get a bad vibe from the people, I can say no, that I know that the dogs are going to a wonderful place. The very first day I volunteered for Pug Rescue of Florida was at an adoption day. And this was before I even got my first foster. And a lady came up and she says, I have a question for you. I said, oh, please be gentle, it's my first day. And she says, why do you think pugs deserve rescue more than any other dog? I don't. Every domesticated animal deserves a loving home. If I wasn't doing pugs, I'd probably be doing dogs on deployment. I would be doing something. Long before I put the name Wicca to my religion, I had 3 basic tenets that I led my life by. 1, I could do anything I wanted, but I couldn't harm anyone, including myself. Sound familiar? I didn't know. 2 was that everything was sacred. All life was sacred, not just human life, not just animal life, but plant life, rocks, the earth. It was all sacred. Sound familiar? The 3rd one was that the world has to be better off for my being allowed to live in it. That we can't just take from the world, we have to give back. And Pug Rescue is the way that I choose to give back.
Very cool. And you bring up an interesting point. You know, I've had many people tell me over the years who have come to the tradition or to the wider Wiccan world that they felt that they were coming home. And very often I've heard the phrase, I finally have a name for what I already believe.
Exactly.
You know, there are people out there who think that we're terribly exotic and different. But the truth is, for a lot of people, they're already embracing the ideas that we teach and don't know what it is. And I find that very interesting. And you've told me the story of how you discovered you were Wiccan. Notice how I say that. And that basically someone said to you when you explained your belief system, oh, you're Wiccan.
That's right.
And you had not known that previously.
Nope.
Did you know what Wiccan was?
I knew that it was out there, but I did not know what it was. I had exposure to friends that had that path, but I had never really explored it at all and had no concept of what it was.
So that's really quite interesting. Is there anything else you'd like to say to our viewers?
Whatever your path is, travel it with peace. If you can't travel your chosen path in peace, then keep looking because you have not found it yet. Your connection to deity should be loving, beautiful, and peaceful, and if that connection has not been made, then keep on seeking.
Very good. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
And thank you.